What's going on, team? Welcome back along to another video as we prepare for more rugby this weekend with Super Rugby AU kicking off tonight pretty much as we record this. It is not far away from getting underway, and the cursed video we've been trying to do for 2 weeks may finally hit your screens before we kick the competition off. Now we've brought in a special guest to tell us all about what is happening over in Australia before this competition gets underway. So it is with great pleasure we finally welcome Brett back onto the channel. How are you, sir? It's been a difficult time to get this one going, but we may finally be on track here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, mate. I think the last time I was on here, the virus that shall not be named was not even a footnote, and I think I was previewing the South African conference, just thinking that we were in store for a big year of Super Rugby post the World Cup, but obviously that didn't happen, and the whole world's been in a bit of a rut lately. But yeah, and I think we've been in a bit of a rut because we've trying to be getting this video done for the last 2 weeks, and we're here like a day before it kicks off. So really, cramming as much knowledge as we can in before before it starts.
We've been through, what, 3 different audio and visual calling services, and this one seems to be working. So shout out Discord. Yeah, if you want to sponsor us, we'll use you all the time because this is the winner. Anyone else, Skype, you can go fall in the river. It's moving on. Up and up in the world we go. Right. We're here to talk about, obviously, Super Rugby AU. We're going to be having a look at what it is all about. We're going to be having a look at the rule changes, which are the big talking point heading into this shortened Australian season. And, of course, we'll be having a look at the 5 sides, which are going to be taking part in this competition this season. So what is it? Of course, it is pretty much Australian Super Rugby. It's going to be the 5 teams from Australia: the Brumbies, the Reds, the Rebels, the Waratahs, and, of course, goes without saying, he's wearing the shirt, the Western Force are back, and they're looking, I think, for revenge. So it all kicks off this Friday, which is hopefully when you're going to be watching this video on July the 3rd. The opening game will be the Reds versus the Waratahs, and then the Brumbies will host the Rebels later on the next day, Saturday, in game number 2. The Western Force, though, sadly, do have the bye. So there's going to be 10 rounds, and unlike Super Rugby Aotearoa, there will be a finals series. So the hype, surely, Brett, must be building in Australia. Is there a lot of talk about Super Rugby AU, or is it kind of flying under the radar with the general public getting their fix from things like the NRL over there?
Yeah, it's always a bit tough in Australia. Obviously, it seems to me that a lot of people are talking about it. That's just because I guess I'm in the right rugby circles. I guess the rugby community over in Australia, especially in Western Australia, where I am, obviously, Force fans are very passionate, and we have been, especially ever since our team was taken away from Super Rugby. But especially people in Perth, rugby fans in Perth are very excited. But in Australia, I think the NRL, obviously, like you said, has come back, and the AFL was just recently restarted a couple of weeks ago as well. So sports so slowly getting rolling. So most of the talk is still over AFL and NRL over here, just like usual. But I think that there's quite a bit of hype, and I think a lot of Aussies are excited for the All Australian format as well.
Has there been much excitement over Super Rugby Aotearoa over there, how it started before many other sports? Is it a big talking point over in Australia? Are people still into their rugby so much, or has this kind of been more of a killer since the disaster that we're not going to talk about happened a couple of months ago?
I think Aotearoa has been pretty big hit in Australia. I mean, Fox Sports is showing all the games live. I didn't really expect it when it was first announced, and I mean, I was stoked for it when it announced, and especially the added factor that there are crowds there, and sport this year showed that sport's really not the same without having a crowd there, and obviously, Super Rugby, we've got sort of used to having no crowds over the last few years, but it's nice seeing a few packed houses in New Zealand, and it's been some really great quality rugby as well. So in the circles that I'm in, there's been a lot of hype around Super Rugby Aotearoa, and I've watched every single game so far. So I guess it's hard to say. Like I've said, I guess I'm in the right circles for it, but I've heard quite a lot of chatter and quite a lot of comparisons about how Super Rugby AU is going to shape up to it.
Hopefully, the standard will be right up there as well. We see some good, close, exciting rugby games coming from over your side of the ditch. Right, it's a big talking point about this competition. Super Rugby AU, the most uncreative name they could have possibly thought of, but that's what they're going with anyway. Now, they've got a number of rule changes. Okay, let's go over these rule changes because if you've tuned in to the website behindthepost.com, I did a piece on there a couple of days ago about these rule changes, what they are, what this competition is all about. So if you want to have a bit of a read about it, go check that out on behindthepost.com. But we're going to talk a little bit about them here. There's a real NRL feeling about this, isn't there? Of course, they're copying the red card rule from Super Rugby Aotearoa, where you can replace a red-carded player after 20 minutes. And they're also, to a degree, copying the extra time rule, or super time, as they call it, of a couple of 5-minute periods as a golden point. So the team that scores first is declared the winner straight away. No messing about. It's done and dusted as soon as those points are scored. They've also got a number of extras. Now, kicking. Something that you'll probably think if you want to make an exciting game, you wouldn't encourage this too much, but they've gone with a 50-22 rule and a 22-50 rule. So pretty much if you're in your own half and you kick it into your opponent's 22, it bounces and goes into touch, you, as the kicking team, will get the line out. If you are in your own 22 and you kick it into your opponent's half and it bounces and goes into touch, you will get the attacking line out. How do you see this affecting the game over in Australia, Brett? It's kind of one of those things, we talked about it a little bit before we started recording. They kind of want to make it attacking, but this doesn't seem like it's going to make the game a big attacking front when the teams, if they want to take effect of these rules, are going to be kicking a lot more.
Yeah, well, like, it completely contradicts everything. I mean, Rugby Australia have come out in the last few weeks and have talked about their fast brand of rugby they're expecting from these new rules, and then they eventually release the rules, and this is what we get. I mean, imagine it, especially on a wet day, a wet game. Imagine how much kicking there's going to be, because practically every kick that you do within that half is effectively a penalty, really. So you're going to see a lot of kicks for touch, and a lot of not as much counter attack as you usually see. There's not much better than a kick being fielded in a 22 and a counter attack being launched off the back of that, and the outside back sort of doing what they paid for, and that's counter attacking. But I don't really understand it. It's sort of what you can expect from Rugby Australia, really. I mean, they've showed that they've the laughing stock of any sort of organisation in world rugby. So it's about the level you can sort of expect from them, saying they want attacking rugby, but then including these rules. I'm simply not really surprised by anything they do these days.
Yeah, they've got a couple others as well, pretty much all resulting in a goal line dropout. So if a kick is entering the in-goal area and it's forced dead by the defending side, play restarts with a goal line dropout. Or if the attacking player carries the ball over the try line, is held up, or he drops the ball, knocks it on, something like that, it is restarted with the goal line dropout. I mean, this just screams copying the NRL, doesn't it? I mean, what's wrong with the old 22 or the 5-metre scrum? I don't see how this improves the game at all by changing the 22 or the 5-metre scrum for a goal line dropout. How do you see it?
Especially the 5-metre scrum. I mean, that's sort of the peak of attacking. You're right in the red zone, and that's what you're likely to score from. So why just take that out of the game completely, but then slap on the more attacking game tag? I don't understand it.
And the teams like the Brumbies, I think, will probably be pretty affected by that. You know, the maul quite often does get held up, but I mean, when you got that instant attack back with the 5-metre scrum, you can just go, well, we'll just reset, go again. We'll do something off the back of the scrum instead of the number 8. It's a bit of a weird one. If anything, it advantages the defending side instead of encouraging the attacking side. So I find that one a bit weird. The ones we talked about first, the red card and the extra time. What's your thoughts on those? Are you a fan of the red card player being replaced?
Yes and no. I mean, I've never really been a fan of red cards. I think, especially if there's a red card on the first. We saw it in Super Rugby. We saw it affect the Super Rugby final a couple of years ago. I think it was 2017, where Quagga Smith, the cult hero, he effectively decided that final, really, because the Lions, who were at home, weren't able to even come back from losing that extra man. So it's a good rule. Some real infractions though really deserve that red card. I mean, if there's a punch up or something on the field, and that offending team's still allowed to have another player on after 20 minutes, I don't know. But I think altogether, I think it's a pretty good rule. I think red cards are normally quite harsh, and especially when it happens in the first half, and you can't replace them, especially when it's a specialist position. You get things like uncontested scrums and whatnot. It's sort of big. It's sort of good, but like you said, it's a bit leaguish. And I guess they're looking towards that way now.
Yep, there's a whole pile of stuff, but the thing that probably isn't I mean, are they going to crack down on the same things that Super Rugby Aotearoa has as well with the actual laws of the game? You know, the offside lines, the ruck. I mean, that's the best thing about Super Rugby Aotearoa is the fact that, you know, you've been watching it. You hit a ruck, the players are in, bang, the ball's out straight away. There's not that mass pile of bodies. That really does encourage the speed. And that's the laws that are already there. So it's really bizarre. And they've gone for all this other stuff that's really not going to change anything when what needs to happen is just the laws need to be actually just strictly abided by. And we've seen results already. The game has changed effectively. I've spoken about on my previews in the past weeks. The back rows, you know, that old big ball disrupting number 7, just not effective anymore. You know, like in your circles, the Hoopers and the Pococks, those guys that were so good at slowing down ball, things like that. I don't think they'll have much of effect in this sort of style game. Like we've seen the Chiefs suffering badly of Boshier and Jacobson, guys that were really good at that, has suffered out in this, and the Chiefs as a result, not the same sort of team when they can't disrupt that breakdown. So it's made a big difference here in New Zealand. So I'm surprised if they don't do the same over in Australia. But yeah, some of these rules just a bit weird. But like you say, that is Rugby Australia in a nutshell at the moment. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, you've talked about it before we started recording about how the Western Force, who played with their own sort of rules in Rapid Rugby, and they were kind of a bit more of attacking. We've talked about the try from inside your own 22 sort of thing, and keeping the ball for that whole period. That encourages a team to go through. Do you think, we'll talk about the Western Force more in a second, but do you think they're going to be more prepared for the season than the other 4 sides because of that experience of playing with these more trialist rules in global Rapid Rugby over the last couple of years?
Sort of hard to say. I think yes and no. I haven't been to quite a few Rapid Rugby games now. They are very attacking and very loose. Not a huge amount of structure to them. A lot of counter attacking. But at the same time, the Force sort of were playing. You know, inferior is sort of a mean word, but they were playing inferior opposition. Really, most games are just ransacked by the Force, and because sides like the Volca and the South China Tigers and things like that, they had some talent, but obviously they're not going to be anything near to what a Brumbies or a Rebels or a Waratahs will present you. So I think with a style of play, yes, but I think the defense is going to be coming at them is going to be a lot tighter and a lot stricter.
It'll be an interesting season. Now, we're going to have a look at the 5 teams that are going to be playing. So, because you're the man from the Force, you're the guy from the West, we're going to talk about your team first. Now, the Western Force, I mean, you spoke about it a little bit there, but boy, this is a big chance for the middle finger, isn't it, to Rugby Australia. This really is the chance for them to come out and go, you guys were wrong. We are a team that can actually step it up. We are a team that belongs in Super Rugby in Australia. What are their chances? Can they come out here and actually make a statement in this shortened season?
Oh, how they come crawling back. when as soon as Rugby Australia is a bit strapped for cash, that $50 million offer for the Force a few years ago seems pretty good now, I'm guessing. And they're not going to get that anymore because screw being owned by those guys. Yeah, look, I think the Force, it's a bit hard to say. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a huge Western Force fan. You know, watching Rapid Rugby over the last few years, you know, it just showed that the strong community that we have over here in WA. I mean, we're averaging higher crowd averages than the other Australian franchises. And Rapid Rugby, there was really good atmospheres and you know, really good attendance on much of the games as well. And you know, when we were initially cut, we got told that there's no way we're going to be able to keep this thing going. That the Force are done, but we've kept them alive. And you know, Twiggy Forrest, with the help of Andrew Forrest, we made our own competition and really developed rugby in different parts of the world, in Samoa and Fiji and in China and Malaysia. And you know, it was going well, but obviously that's off the cards right now, and you know, it's created this opportunity for us to go back into Super Rugby. But like you said, it's a big opportunity for a middle finger, and you know, for us to play some rugby and to show those guys that pretty much booted us out, you know, what we're made of and what WA is made of. So, you know, we're a really proud state, and the Western Force really embodies sort of the WA sort of mindset, and it's pretty much just to stick it to the Eastern states, really. So, I'm looking forward to it. In terms of their chances, we've really developed quite a lot of young talent. Unfortunately, after last year, a lot of that talent was actually poached poached by Bove. So we had a really good scrum half by the name of Isaac Fines, who was actually ripping it up. I think he'll end up going to the Brumbies, and we developed a really good fly half called Andrew Deegan as well. And I think he either went to the Brumbies or Rebels. My memory's a bit hazy there, but if we had those two, we'd be in very good stead. But we still have a really good group of young guys, and then you add experienced guys who have been there since the Super Rugby days. Your Marcel Barakis, your Heath Testmans, Jeremy Thrush, obviously, is an All Black who's joined the ranks in the last couple of years as well. You have those experienced guys, and you bring guys like the signings I've had, like your Greg Holmeses, Carl Godwin, John Lance, of experience, Nick Frisbee, Pet Cowan. So it's really it's going to be hard to say until we see that first game against the Waratahs next week. But I think the mix of experience and youth is looking quite good right now.
You've talked about it just briefly there at the end. How good is it that the Western Force have come back and got these guys like Kyle Godwin and Frisbee and Holmes, but especially like those guys, the guys that have played for the Force already, like you said, in the early Super Rugby days. How much of a statement is that, not only to as the club, but to Rugby Australia, that these guys want to go back to play for the Force, to have that lure to come back and not want to go to Brumbies or to the Rebels or the Reds or those established sort of Super Rugby clubs. That's a huge coup, isn't it, for them to have them come back? And surely there must be, surely Australia can see, Rugby Australia can see that there's that environment there that players want to play for, and they have to be able to. This is Rugby Australia we're talking about, I know. Surely they must be able to see that there's something there for these guys to go back to. The atmosphere, surely at that part of the world, must be huge. They must be really excited to get these guys back, and they must just be ready to go. Is the general feeling about there having those players back just overwhelmingly positive, and like it's a family getting back together, the old firm getting back together again?
Yeah, for sure. Having guys like Kyle Godwin in particular, we developed him, and he left the Force a year before they actually got kicked out. But just for an opportunity, he went to the Brumbies, and he's chosen to come back. And having guys like, especially like John Lance, when he was at the Force, that was probably the best rugby he's played. I'd say he hasn't really done a whole lot since he was at the Force in 2017, and 2017 was a good year for, obviously, besides getting action in the comp. In terms of our rugby, it was a good year for the Force. We narrowly missed out on the finals, and we played some really good rugby, and John Lance was at the center of that. But I think, and so the fact of the matter is the Western Force now the richest club in Australia, and we've shown that with the signings we're able to make, and Rugby Australia is really folding and playing their players peanuts and cutting play contracts by half, and although it doesn't sound great, but we've got a billionaire backing us, and he's pumping all the money he can. He just donated $5 million towards WA grassroots just yesterday. He's brought back David Pocock as an ambassador for the grassroots. So should the sort of the course stay true to what it is right now, I think WA could be looking at a sort of a powerhouse rugby state with all the money being pumped into it, and money does breed success. Obviously, it's not the only ingredient in a successful team, but it's a very big component of it.
Indeed it is. So let's make your statement here. Where are you going to finish the Force this season? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, put me on the spot. I think I'll be foolish just to sit here and say that the Force are going to top the comp and win the whole thing. Obviously, I want that to happen, and there's obviously potential because it's we've seen in Super Rugby Aotearoa anything. If the Blues are probably the best team in the comp, I think anything can happen. But look, I think the Force, they're not going to finish top. I don't think they'll finish second either. But I think they're going to pull. So I think they're going to have a few scalps, especially when they come back to WA and there's crowds at their games. And see a Blue show up in full force, and I expect that stadium to be pretty chocker full out. So I'd say right now I've got the Force finishing third.
And making the finals. Oh, what a statement that would be. Okay, let's move on and have a look at the other sides. The Brumbies, of course, the best-looking team before Super Rugby went all pear-shaped. They seem to be the team to beat at the moment, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think my opinion, I think the Brumbies are shaping up to still be the best team in Australia. everyone was sort of writing their obituary before sort of Super Rugby at the beginning of the year started, and saying sort of their reign was finished. But they show the Brumbies are just class. But I think what you touched on with the rule changes, I think the Brumbies have always relied on things like mauls and 5 minute scrums and whatnot. They've always been that dominant forwards team who like to take it straight up their guts and pretty much just bully teams into getting wins. So it'll be interesting to see. They've never been the most inspired team when it comes to attack, and it'll be interesting to see how they deal with those rule changes. But in my opinion, in terms of their on paper, they're still the best team in Australia, I'd say.
They've had a few changes, or not too many actually, to be fair. A couple wins, couple out, but probably the biggest thing for the Brumbies team is they've had guys that had pretty decent injuries back in regular Super Rugby. Now will be close to or fit and rearing to go. So that's got to be a huge boost for them as well. And they start their season off against the Rebels this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see how they go. Do you think anyone's going to stop the Brumbies this season, or is it going to be straight to number one for them?
I have them finishing number one. Like I said, though, a few scalps will happen and upsets will happen. But I think as it stands right now, I think the Brumbies will. If you look at their team and like you said, those injuries like guys like Alan Otoa and Flower Fighting and guys like that coming back in, they're looking pretty good. And I have them finishing top at the end of just before the finals anyway.
They are, I think, the team to beat as well. Good looking side. I don't think they're going to change how they play. They're going to play that same sort of style rugby. Yes, they might lose a few chances to that whole 5 minute scrum, goal line dropout thing. But if anything, what's the goal line dropout going to be? Up to halfway, get a good 10, 15 metre run in, you're back to near on the 22. They'll certainly adapt, but it's not quite the attacking threat I think that they probably had before, like some other sides may have. So you got them top, you got the Force in third. Oh, it's ambitious. Let's move on to the Rebels. I mean, let's be frustrated, eh? This Rebels team, I'm done with the Rebels. I said this earlier, heading into this, previewing this. The Rebels are just that team. They're like the Blues, they're like that team. Like you don't really want them to do well, but the whole merger. You got all those players. They got the coach. They got everything kind of given to them, and they still just can't deliver. Another season of just disappointing mediocrity for the Rebels for you.
It's hard to tell. Depends what Rebels team turns up, and it really it doesn't look like they're going to have any home games either because Victoria are in a woeful state right now in terms of they're dealing with the pandemic. Ever since the protest a couple of weeks ago, they've had huge spikes. So it doesn't look like they're going to have many. I don't think they're going to have any home games. I don't think. Hopefully the Rebels are already out of Victoria. I don't know whether they are or not. But it's hard to say. Like you said, they got the sort of the best of the Force when that sort of merger happened. They got the Force coach there. I still rate Dave Vessels as a very good coach. And they obviously have guys like that saw the Rebels old guard like Corey Betty, Reece Hodge, guys like that, and they've picked up some great players as well. And they're just at the start of the seasons they're sort of always there, but then they just always fall off. And obviously they had that shocker game at the start of this year against the Sunwolves where they got belted. It's hard to say with them. I think with them they got all the talent, but I don't think the Rebels have a culture, and they don't really have anything they found sort of to lay their foundations on, which is what I think sort of costs them in the end every single time.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good point. It's true, isn't it? The way that they play, they don't kind of have that passion or that that culture. That's a very good point. I do like that, and that sums up the Rebels quite a lot. I think they're probably going to struggle this season. I think what's going to help them is they probably. Well, obviously they don't have to play outside of Australian teams, so it's probably going to help them a little bit because the confidence side of things, if they can get off to a decent start, they know their opponents, they're not going to have to travel away and get thumped by the Crusaders and things like that like normally do have. They're not going to have to go to Africa and get smashed by the Sharks, and that sort of thing may help them a little bit. But like you say, will they even be playing at home is a pretty realistic proposition they're going to have to deal with, I think. So it's going to be tough for them. We've got first, we've got third. Where are you popping the Rebels?
I think I'm actually going to change what I had down originally. Originally, I had them at second. But I think I might actually drop them to fourth. Because I literally, as I was speaking, I literally just sort of thought of the fact that they're not going to have any home games and they're going to be on the road pretty much every single game. So I think I'm actually going to drop them down to fourth. Yeah, fourth sounds good. I don't like the Rebels, so I don't really care. Yeah, stuff the Rebels.
The arch rivals, eh? Force and the Rebels. What week do they play? I know what.
I'll be at the game. I think it's 20. What is it? End of July. The Rebels come to Perth, and I will be at that game, and I'll be hurling abuse. So I can't wait.
Oh, that sounds just glorious, doesn't it? Real chance for redemption there for the Western Force. Right, let's move on to the Reds. Now, we've only got, second and fifth left, so we've only got the Reds and the Waratahs to look over. Promising signs for this Reds team this season. Got big old Brad Thorns there. They've still got that big pack, and they're going to, I think, play that similar forward-based dominating game that we see kind of from the Brumbies. A bit more exciting, I would hope, than the Brumbies do play. So the Reds, possibility, a team on the up, a lot of youth, a lot of young guys, a lot of excitement machines, but will they be delivering in Australia this season? How have you got the Reds going?
Obviously better than I first had them. Basically, I think the Reds are poised to be a good team. Like you said, they've sort of had that young core, especially in their young forwards, rolling for a few years now. And I'm a big fan of the way Brad Thorn coaches. I love Thornball, and just the sort of the I don't care. We're going to play our game. We don't care what game you're going to play sort of attitude. I love that. Love that from them. I think Isaac Rodder will be a big miss for them, a big loss for them. The fact that he's not there. But they've still got a lot of young core, and I'm a big fan of their forward pack. And I think they're sort of just poised to click. And maybe this break in isolation has sort of given them some time to sort of reflect, I guess, and sort of come up to be the team that they've been sort of waiting to be. So I have the Reds finishing in second.
Oh, he's got the Reds. I was wondering what way you'd swing on that one, but I had a sneaking feeling. We both agree that we don't like the Waratahs, so I mean that's one thing we can go with. Big call as skipper for the Reds, isn't it? Liam Wright getting that armband. I still think that's I think quite an inspired change, and it carries on with the old Brad Thorn sort of thing, isn't it? It's his game, it's his play, it's his way, or it's off the road, and I mean that's what we've seen from those three guys that got the chop. Rodder being that big name. I mean, he just got to play his game. And like you said earlier, they go from rejecting the pay cut, they go to having no pay. It's like, who's a smart one here? At least get something for your time. Goodness me, they're off nothing at all for them. So the Reds, that's how they play, isn't it? It's you play to their rules, you play to their game, or you just get out. And I mean, that, like you talked about, culture. That's the sort of culture that the Reds have. And they seem to abide by it quite well. And it's doing them well, I think. They're coming along quite a strong little side. Hopefully they can step it up this season and relive or revive some of that old Reds glory days and get those players up into the real highlights of Australian rugby. One team left to go. You've only got one spot left. Oh, it's the woeful Waratahs. The headless chickens, I like to call them. Oh, dear me. This is going to be exciting. I quite like watching the Waratahs lose. It is quite exciting to see them in action for us against the Reds. So that's going to be a really interesting game. We're going to see how both those two sides are, but more of that in the preview, of course. But this Waratahs side, I don't know. Do you want to find a positive about them, or are we just going to bash them?
No one positive. Look, they're Rugby Australia's baby. They always have been. They've always gotten the most love, the most support, the most funding. And it's great. I'm not going to lie. It's great to see them in the position they are right now. Back in Michael Checker's Waratahs, I didn't actually mind when they won that title. I think they were a pretty good squad. I think they had some culture to them and whatnot. But look, it's great to see the Waratahs in such a state, because I think rugby boys love the Waratahs. It's also great to see Phil Kearns, who's a diehard Waratahs fan and ex-player, whatever. It's great to see his face when they lose, and I'm looking forward to that in the post game tomorrow night when they get thumped by the Reds. So. Look, before the whole lockdown, they were woeful. 1 win and 5 losses, and they were having a terrible time. And now they don't have Kurtley Beale either, and I don't know what's going on there. But I think they're a bit of a mess, really. And I'm not expecting a whole lot from them at all.
Yep, that's a big loss, isn't it, Lose currently Beale. Of course, the New Zealand coach, Rob Penny, had to go over and serve a quarantine period before he could even join the team. So it makes me wonder, has there been any direction for the side during lockdown? You know, they've had all those players been over in Australia. Their coach has been over here in New Zealand, escaping the world of Australia over there. And I wonder what those players have been doing. Like, has there been any growth of cohesion for them? They've probably just been doing what they want, sitting there, you know, eating cake and who knows what sort of shape they're going to be in. It's kind of, this is the kind of thing where you see what a professional player is really like. Are they a guy who's going to go out on their own bat and actually keep their fitness levels up, train, you know, improve skills on the downtime, or are they guys that just go out and have a good time and do whatever because no one's telling them what to do? So we can see what the Waratahs are all about. I'm sure they've had someone probably chomping on behind them to get them to do something, but who knows what Waratahs we're going to see. So you've got them coming in 5th position.
Sure do.
Yep, I can't disagree with that at all. I think this team's going to be a shambles, and I'm quite enjoying the prospect of seeing it as well. But that is the 5 sides in Super Rugby AU coming to you. Well, starts tonight. It is going to be, hopefully, an exciting competition. We're going to see lots of good rugby joining up with Super Rugby Aotearoa. We get to see how good these Australians are going to be. And finally, just one little thought that I've spoken about earlier. This competition as a whole, Super Rugby AU, I think is the best time. We've seen the first couple of teams be announced with the Reds and the Waratahs, and we've seen a lot of young guys that we like, especially over here in New Zealand, like, who is that guy? We have no idea who this fella is, and that guy. Added on to the guys who played the early part of the season Super Rugby already. This is the best time to do it, isn't it? This is the best time to get those guys out because you're only playing Australian teams. You don't have to worry about going over and getting pumped by another team in Africa or here in New Zealand. It's only Australia. So the positive here for the Australian media is that an Australian team is always going to win. So this is the best time to bring those players out. I think this is going to be a beneficial part for Australian rugby. Then they look at 2021, they're going to say, now we've got a good pool of players that are coming through a year of professional rugby under their belt. This has to be the point that they start to improve and get their pool of players back.
Yeah, I think if you look at it for just this year, having an Australian only comp, I think is just going to generate positives. I don't really see a whole lot of negatives in it. I think long term, I don't think Australia can support its own competition in rugby union, and that's sort of just the fact of the matter, really. But if in terms of if you're looking at just this year, just 2020, I think you're right. I think you're going to see a lot of guys, and we really see it happening in New Zealand as well. For instance, I didn't really know who Caleb Clark was before a couple of weeks ago, and he's my favorite player to watch in the world. So that guy's I could go in a whole half an hour video on him as well. But look, if we find a Caleb Clark in Australia, preferably at the Force, that would be good. I think it's going to be good, and it's going to be good for the Western Force boys as well, too, especially those guys who haven't really had a whole lot of experience against other super teams. Obviously, we have played them in NRC, and we are the NRC champions. I forgot to mention that. Just thought I'd throw that in there as well. We're the champions of Australia, and we're not even owned by the AOU. So that's good. Just thought I'd chuck that in there as well. But yeah, look, it's going to be good, and like you said, it's a good ground to find some talent on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It all starts off this weekend, tonight, Super Rugby AU. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be running in conjunction with Super Rugby Aotearoa. The cool thing is, Australia's going to be going Friday and Saturday night. Super Rugby Aotearoa is going to be going Saturday and Sunday. So you're going to have yourself a full weekend of rugby to tune into. Big thanks to Brett for coming on and having his thoughts on Super Rugby AU with us here tonight. And I hope you all enjoyed our thoughts on the competition. Let me know what you guys all think about it. What do you think of the rules? What do you think about the teams? Where do you think they're going to finish? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. But until next time, thanks for tuning in as always. And we'll see you for the next one. Until then, take care.